Hi, this is Mark News from Plant Talk Radio. Thanks for subscribing and listening to our podcast, Your Gardening Questions from Plant Talk Radio. If you have a gardening question you'd like our host Fred Howard to answer, send him an email. The email address is fred@planttalkradio.com. Now for today's question.
I have a question about mulberry bushes or trees.
All right.
Getting overcome by them, when I cut them, they get bushier. The more I cut them, the bushier they get. I'll get rid of them.
Okay, now you may, while you were waiting there patiently, you may have heard Mark mention the fact that he is about to either play Caddyshack and blow it out of the ground or build a bonfire on it. It's a type of viburnum. The mulberry is a sturdy plant, as you have found, and it comes back with a vengeance when you've cut it back. It's an ornery plant. It's very substantial, as you have found, and I know when they do come back, it's with a vengeance. Now, what I'm going to suggest is that if you have just cut it back, or if you're going to, let it start to grow again, but minimally, just maybe 6 or 8 or 10 inches with a number of leaves that have already developed, and start using very, very, very carefully a brush killer. Now, sometimes, depending on how big and old the plant is, sometimes Roundup will do the job, etc. But you need to go after it with a vengeance, and it will take probably multiple sprayings. You might even fight it through this summer and into next summer, but you will eventually, if you're careful and don't get into trouble with other things that are close, you can cause the plant to withdraw a little bit at a time. And if you keep the foliage from developing every 10 or 14 days, you can keep it from feeding itself, so to speak, and it will eventually die. But I can tell you it's going to be a long battle. Now, beyond that, Keith, you call in an excavator with a great big backhoe and have him just grub the dude out of there.
Okay, so in other words, I can either use Roundup or brush killer, correct?
Yes, and quite frankly, if this is an older plant coming back with that much vengeance, it may be that Roundup will not do the job. Now, Roundup would probably still knock off, am I thinking right here? Yeah, it would still knock off the foliage, and if you did it often enough, you can cause the plant to starve itself, but it will be an ongoing battle. The brush killers then go the next step. They are more thoroughly absorbed into the plant, a little bit different chemistry, etc., and will kill somewhat more rapidly. However, you have to be extremely careful of the things that are growing around that mulberry, because a brush killer takes all, is what it boils down to.
Hey, thanks again for listening to our podcast. Be sure to subscribe to our other podcasts as well, the Plant of the Week podcast and the Plant Talk Radio podcast, all on iTunes or your favorite podcast player. If you'd like to sponsor a daily podcast, contact us at fred@planttalkradio.com. To find out more about Fred Howard and Plant Talk Radio, visit our website, planttalkradio.com.
This is Michelle Wilson, host of the Business Inspires podcast from the Tri-Village Chamber Partnership. To run a successful business, you need resources, valuable connections, and community recognition. In each episode of the Business Inspires podcast, we talk with small business community leaders who will inspire you to create the business you are envisioning. The Business Inspires podcast is on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play, YouTube, your Alexa device, and your favorite podcast player.
Circle270media.com